Welcome to the show. We are here, Ancient Echoes. My name is Bronson Long. I'm accompanied, as always, by my big brother, big fan, big friend, my man Austin Long. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm hanging out, bro. We had a storm last night, man, and it made it
Uh,
rough to get anything done.
oh my God. All right, guys, we recorded this video last night and we tried it one time and about 4 minutes and it went completely haywire, man. And then after that, we recorded the whole video and Bronson was breaking up on my screen. And I'm like, man, all right, well, man, you're breaking up. So let me talk a whole lot. And then come to find out, the person who didn't have good internet signal was me. And so the whole video was trash. So we're gonna run this back again, and practice makes perfect, man. We do it nice because we do it twice.
That's
This
right,
time
bro.
we happen to do it thrice. So now we're gonna hit it again tonight, Christian conspiracy, and just try and break down the Nephilim in the most simple ways we can. Is we're calling it like Nephilim 101.
Right.
Um, it's become more mainstream over the years. I know Ancient Aliens kind of popularized it. When we were younger, our dad told me about it, kind of in reference to Anakin Skywalker from episode 4 when that came out, saying, "Oh, that's real close to Anakin," and that's the first kind of like, all right. And I went and looked in the Bible and said, wow, that is there. And where we're starting tonight is actually the verse that I went and looked at. It's in Genesis 6:4. And so we're just going to give our Nephilim breakdown. And don't turn it off yet. We're not just two dudes talking. We got all kinds of clips and pictures and historical facts. And we might even dig into some crazy skulls tonight and some DNA testing and just trying to link everything together. And Bronson, do you want to go ahead and get started? We're going to get right into the Bible. We're going to start
Yeah.
here.
First things first.
Yeah, for always. We always start with the Bible. If you want to see the other stuff, it's later on. We start with the Bible. That's priority.
Absolutely, it is. We set our foundation up in Scripture, and the most famous verse, "Sing it with me if you know it," is in Genesis. It's in Genesis 6, chapter 4.
Guys, and if you're a veteran, I know it's like, oh, Genesis 6:4 again. And I
Yeah,
get the same way when I watch it, but just hang tight. We got some stuff that you've probably not seen before, and if you have, you probably haven't seen it for a while. We're going to rehash some things, but also we've I haven't seen anybody make a connection that we make. So usually we don't plan these videos, but we've kind of been through it a few times, as we told you. So we did make a connection that I don't see a whole lot of people making, and it's very important. So let's go ahead and Bronson, would you mind reading Genesis 6:4 for us?
absolutely. Yeah. So Genesis 6, chapter 4, we're in the King James Version. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
All right. So if you could do me a favor,
Sure.
um, can we go ahead and pull that up? And let's look at, and this is for a reason, guys. I want to look at this word old real quick, and I'm going to explain it to you after Bronson shows you this translation.
Sure thing. Sure thing. Whenever we look up words, guys, I think it's important to express, if you're unfamiliar with what this is, the Bible was originally written in three languages: Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. Right now, we're in Genesis, of course, so your language is going to be Hebrew. So we're looking at this word olam, olam. Then instead of Hebrew, you're reading in English, and so they decided to put the word old. So when we're looking at this definition right here, we're looking at the word olam, which the English chose to use for old. And that definition is long duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, ever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual, old, and ancient. Everlasting that's pretty old, Austin.
Yeah, yeah, that means like way, 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 way old. We've talked about this before. This is older than 45 Morgan Freeman's.
Yes.
This is old, old, old. This is older than Joe Biden's great, great, great grandpappy. It's old, old, old. Real old, super old, man. It's not just like back in the day. It's a long time ago. And usually when you see olam used, it's talking about the pre-flood days, what the New Agers would call the Golden Age. You know,
Right.
So, all right, so let's take a look at this. So it's way old, and the reason that we brought this up first is because we're talking about the Nephilim. Now, pre-flood, these giants were called Nephilim. They're giants. After the flood, there's only one occurrence to where they're called Nephilim, and that was when the scouts went with Caleb, and they were coming back and giving a bad report, and they were saying Nephilim. They were trying to over exaggerate how big these guys were because they didn't want to fight. So now that we've checked that out, there's another word used for them that we're going to get into later on after the flood. So now that we've checked that out, let's go to the sons of God. Let's go back to this passage in 6:4 and take a look at this.
Sure. So we're going to look at the sons of God.
Now you can, if you want to pull up the translation. It's B'nai Ha Elohim. But can we look at just the verse in its totality?
Sure, and you're in reference to.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, let's show them Genesis 6 so they can see what we're talking about again, because we kind of just jumped into old.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll read it one more time. Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
All right. So right here, when it's talking about the sons of God, a lot of people from seminaries, they teach pastors this, is that those sons of God were the sons of Seth, and the daughters of men were the daughters of Cain. Now, I don't know about you, but kissing cousins, they don't create huge 9-foot, 10, 12, 13-foot giants. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. That's not what happens. But that's what they teach them in seminary. So it takes all of the power out of the Bible, and honestly, it gives a wide open door, and I'll explain this as we go, you'll understand it more, for God to be called a genocidal maniac. And the reason for this is in the Old Testament. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So let's look at this. The sons of God. And if you don't believe me, and we're just using the Bible here, we're going to get to Enoch a little bit later, and it's going to really color it in. Can we go to that passage in Job?
Yeah, be happy to.
Now let's take a look at this.
Yeah, this is in Job chapter 38, a beautiful chapter. We've referenced this a handful of times here. We're talking about where were you when God created is essentially what's going on here. In Job 38, verse 4, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? That's the context here. When we go down into verse 7, he's saying, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy.
So right there in Job, in verse 6, it says, whereupon the foundations therefore are fastened, who laid the cornerstone thereof? Now, if you've done construction before, you know the foundation, the cornerstone, that's at the beginning. This is talking about at the genesis of creation, the very beginning of creation. And the sons of God shouted for joy. Okay. So were the sons of Seth there at creation?
No.
No, they were not. So we're talking about something else. Now, when you hear the term sons of God, that typically notates that it is a direct creation of God. For example, Adam would be a son of God because he is a direct creation. He wasn't the result of sexual intercourse. He was directly created by God. The
Right.
same as the angels would be sons of God because they are a direct creation.
Right. Right. Just quick verse reference, just to back up what he's saying. Remember when Jesus says that the spiritual beings neither do marry, or are given in marriage. So there's no mommy angel and daddy angel to make baby angel. So just wanted to point that out to just back up what you're saying there. Very good point.
All right, man. Well, we've shown a little bit biblical references here. Now, let me ask you this, Bronson. If these giants were here, wouldn't we have the bones?
Yeah, I mean, you would surely think we would. I mean, I don't know if you'd find them in your backyard, although some people claim that they have.
That's for sure.
Yeah, some people claim that they have. There's all sorts of um, newspaper clippings and articles and references and all sorts of diaries from people that came to America originally back in the 1400s, that they make all sorts of claims. But this day and age, man, it doesn't seem like they're popping up as much as what they supposedly did a few hundred years ago.
Well, what a lot of people have said, and there's a lot of reports of this in Steve Quayle's book, True Legends. It records lots of testimony of this, that the Smithsonian has been, there it is, yeah. Shout out to Steve Quayle. The Smithsonian has been taking these bones of these giants and either hiding them somewhere or destroying them. There's been all kinds of reports of this, and we actually have a clip that we're about to play you of a interview of this happening. It's reported that governments of the world, Vatican, the typical suspects, but here in America, when they find the bones, they seem to be the Smithsonian shows up, and then nothing's ever heard of again. So let's just look at this interview right here, just to get an eyewitness account. And Bronson, go ahead, man.
Sure. Can I get a quick sound check? Just make sure we're on.
Sure. Yeah.
Got it? All right. Sounds good.
The bones of giants were buried among the Nuraghe ruins and tombs beneath the church of Santa Anastasia. We even discovered two dead giants embracing each other. They were complete skeletons. The larger one was over 9 feet tall. I measured it with an architect from Milan. Whenever we found the bones of giants, we would carry them into the church. Everything went into the church. The bones, the artifacts, everything. We would arrange them on a large table inside of the church. There were bones of both normal-sized people and giants. Every day, that table would be full of artifacts. The bones of the giants were enormous. Hands, feet, and skulls 3 or 4 times the size of ours. But everything would disappear overnight. The next day, there would be nothing left. Everything would just disappear. It was always like that. As soon as we would find something, the next day everything would be gone. And we never knew where that stuff went.
Awesome. That's good there, man.
All right. Man, that's interesting there, man.
Yeah.
Real interesting.
Well, that's typically one of the questions people ask is, oh, well, where's the bones at? Well, they've been found. And can we show some of these old newspaper clips that we pulled up just to show a few things? We show some stuff from the Bible. Let's show some stuff from the physical and from the, fairly recent history.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and relatively speaking, this is recent history. That's a good point.
This right here is from Lovelock Cave. Just look at that. Can we? Yeah. Now, we cannot confirm these pictures. We can't confirm any of this. We're just coloring in what the Bible tells us. Okay? The same thing that we're going to do with Enoch, and we're going to show you that there is history all over the world of these Nephilim. Now, this is from the Lovelock Cave. What else do we have?
Sure. Back out of this. Something in recent history. I mean, you're talking about recent. This is not. Yeah, nobody stood here and took this picture, by the way. This is an artist rendition. I don't know if they let photographers there with military, but
well, let me tell a little bit of this story. I believe this happened in 2006 in Kandahar, Afghanistan. A group of soldiers were on patrol and they never called back and were answering their radios. And so they sent special forces out there just to go look for them, which is highly irregular. And they found this giant. They found some of their comrades' body parts. It's kind of a gruesome story, but anyways, they had to fire multiple shots. This is a whole team of special forces had to fire multiple shots and finally took this giant out. It took a lot, and they killed one of the special forces with a spear. I mean, right here it says that it threw the spear in the actual story. I've seen an interview with one of the guys that at least claims was on this team. I believe this is real. This is as close to confirmed as I can get. There's a lot of credible people from the military that confirmed this, or at least confirmed that they heard rumors of this, and that the U.S. government came in after they killed this thing and hauled it off with a helicopter. And you can just let your mind run a little wild with what the U.S. military could do with the DNA of a giant. We had Vladimir Putin that talked about the super soldier program. And if you think that I've said this before, if you think the U.S. government didn't make a military application out of anything they could with this thing, you're out of your mind. Mm-hmm. Now, a popular YouTube channel, Mr. Ballin, who does the creepy videos and interesting stories and all that type of stuff. I really like the guy.
Strange, dark, and mysterious.
Strange, dark, and mysterious. That's what it is. He was a former Navy SEAL, and he talked about this. He did a whole episode on it. I highly recommend it. He's this credible guy that was in the Navy SEAls. Well-known guy. I don't know how many subscribers he has. A bunch, I think. Right at 8 million. Yeah. So popular channel. Did you find anything in that episode you wanted to play?
I mean, we've got some key moments here. We have the soldier's testimony. You want to give that a shot? And then we have
let's try it, man. Let's try the soldier's testimony.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're winging it here. Let's give it a shot. See what happens. And can I do a quick sound check? Let me know if you can hear this.
No, sir.
All right. And that is why we do checks. All right, here we go. This is going to get us working here. My fiance, dude, I hear Mr. Ballin in my house at least once a week.
No sound, sir.
You know what? I don't have any sound on mine either. And that's very strange. But guys, it's right here, and you can go find it. It's a real simple YouTube search. Mr. Ballin, like Austin said, is an incredibly popular dude.
He's the Kandahar Giant. So, Kandahar Giant, I believe it's from 2006. So it's very, very new. It's American soldiers that have testified to this. And this is about as credible as a modern-day giant story gets. Okay? Yeah. These things are real. I believe in the remote parts of the earth, they do still exist. Within cave systems, I believe they exist. These things are massive, absolutely massive. I wish we could get that interview, because just how many shots it took to take this thing down. It gives you an idea of what the Israelites were against when they were going into Canaan. It's only by the power of God that they were able to do that.
Right. I'll tell you what. I'll try it one more time. Well, I'm just gonna sit here and just discuss something real quick. I mean, like you said, I believe it too, man. I mean, for somebody like you and me, it's because it's in the Bible, we're basically already there. You know what I'm saying? It's something that we're going to be agreeing with.
After 3 years.
But at the same time, let's say you're not a big Bible person, so you don't much care for the Bible. There's something about, I don't know what else to call it, when almost all of the major ancient cultures of the entire earth agree on something, hard to disagree with that. Every ancient culture that we know of, that I know of, all agrees there was one large catastrophic deluge of a flood that ruined the earth. Every ancient religion that I know of, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, has got fairies and dwarfs and troglodytes and trolls and orcs.
Yeah, just check out an old bestiary. You'll find all kinds of crazy stuff, man.
Absolutely.
Can we get the interview? I heard sound, so let's see.
Let's go to right at the 5-minute mark, I think is where we were supposed to be. And let's give it a shot.
They would send them out to find this missing unit. And so one soldier that was a part of that elite special forces detachment, who just goes by Mr. K, he would come forward years later and tell the story of what happened once they were tasked with this mission. So they leave via helicopters and they fly out to the Kandahar mountain range, about 4 clicks, so 4 kilometers about from where they believed was this infantry unit's last known location. And so they land and they start doing this fairly methodical search through the mountainside. They knew that they were in enemy territory, and at any time they could get into a gunfight, they could be ambushed. There's all these cave systems all over these mountains. And so it's slow moving to begin with. Plus, they're looking for this lost infantry unit. So it's just a very slow movement through the mountains. And so over the first few days, nothing really happened. They didn't come in contact with the enemy. They didn't see any sign of this missing infantry unit. They just walked along the mountains carrying a bunch of gear, and that was it. At some point, they noticed a little bit farther ahead that there was this distinct pathway leading up the mountain and kind of around the corner. And it looked like a goat trail. There were lots of goats that would run around the mountainside, and it looked like a very well-developed goat trail. And they decided, let's just go up there. If nothing else, we can go up onto wherever this leads us and maybe look down across the other side of the mountain and see if we can see anything. And so the team starts making their way up this goat trail. And as soon as they start making their way up, they start noticing that there are little pieces of American military equipment on the ground. There are pieces of radios, like whip antennas and housing of the actual radio itself. They found military-style backpacks as well, and they started finding pieces of uniforms that belonged to the missing infantry unit. They knew based on the patches that were on these uniforms. So as they're walking up this trail of broken equipment and uniforms, they start seeing some bone on the ground. They didn't know if it was human bone or what. They start seeing broken bones scattered on their way up to this kind of plateau. And so now the Special Forces team, I mean, they're incredibly well trained. I mean, I'm not just being biased here. I mean, the Army Green Berets, the Army Special Forces, they're very similar to the Navy SEAL teams, which I was a part of. Two different units, no doubt, but very much peers. And the level of training you get in handling situations like this one, now granted, this one's pretty unique, you're so well trained that when things start getting dangerous, it's like your training just kicks in, and everybody's does. And so I would imagine that when they saw this, what they were thinking is this was an ambush. This infantry unit was ambushed, and we're probably coming up on the ambush site. And so they're, taking defensive positions, and they're moving slowly and very tactically up this mountain, and they're keeping their weapons pointed at the leading edge on their way up to the top of this mountain. They get to this plateau. It's like a flat section of the mountain, right? It's like a steep mountain, and there's like this little shelf almost. And there's more equipment scattered and more bones scattered across it. And there's all these cave entrances right in front of them. It's as if they were intentionally placed so that they fed out onto this shelf. And so they start moving towards the mouth of the caves. And they realize, without even getting very close, that even though the mouth of these caves are pretty large and everybody could go into the cave, there is a steep drop off. Like you'd walk in and then it just goes straight down. And someone kind of peered over the edge and couldn't see how far it went down. And they decided that it was just too dangerous to go in there, because clearly something happened here where American lives were lost, based on the tattered uniforms and equipment. And so let's just pull back and take up defensive positions, looking at the entrance to all of these cave entrances. And so as leadership goes down, kind of out of the fatal funnels, if you will, outside of these caves, Mr. K, who's the guy who's told us this whole story, he said he's looking at one of the entrances to the caves and he sees a flash of movement inside of the cave. And he looks over at it. He doesn't have time to react to it or anything. And all of a sudden a spear comes flying out of the cave. This big, massive lance comes flying out, and it goes right through one of his teammates whose name was Dan. And so Dan's down. And so the whole team saw that. They didn't see who threw it, but they certainly saw the spear hit Dan. And so as they're shocked and just keeping their weapon up, wondering what's going to happen, out runs this, by Mr. K's account, a 12 to 15 foot tall man with a red beard and red hair down past his shoulders, comes charging out, howling like a war cry. He's got animal skins for clothes. He just looks super dirty. And he runs over to Dan to pull the spear out and probably use it again. And the rest of the team at this point is broken out of their shock of what they're seeing, and they start engaging this giant. And the giant didn't really have a chance to fight back. And in 30 seconds, the giant is down too. So Dan's down and the giant is down. And the whole team is like, what just happened? So after the dust had settled and all the shooting had stopped, They went to check on Dan, and Dan had passed away. And so they called back into higher headquarters, and they're trying to describe what happened. A very large, possibly human creature threw a projectile that hit Dan. And so they sent 2 helicopters out, one to retrieve Dan and the team, the other just to hoist up this very large human-like creature because they wanted to know what it was. And they struggled mightily to get the netting around this big creature. It ended up weighing over 1,100 pounds. It had 6 toes on each foot, and it had 6 fingers on each hand. They load it up, they string it onto this helo, and it takes off. And the team gets into the other helicopter, and they go back expecting to be debriefed as soon as they get back to base. The helicopter with the Giant would fly to an airfield, and they would meet up with a crew of a C-130, which is another big military aircraft. The pilot of that craft would publicly say that he remembers seeing a 12 to 15 foot tall giant person with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. And he would say that's what he saw, even though it was later redacted and made top secret. Mr. K and his team, they flew back to the base to be debriefed. And so they had to provide an after action report. It's something done in the military. You go out, you do any operation, you come back, and you write up what happened. And so Mr. K and his team decided to just be honest about what they saw. And so they described it again in detail, 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. It came out, it threw the spear, it hit Dan, it's this horrible situation. And once they submitted it, their leadership said, you got to rewrite that. We're not going to accept that. So Mr. K said they ultimately rewrote it, and it just sounded like a typical engagement in the mountains with the enemy. And
All right,
it
that's
was made
good,
top
Bronson.
secret, and then they never saw it again. And that was it. Mr. K.
And that was it. Ain't that something, man?
That's a pretty wild story, right? Now, you heard what they said at the end about the 6 fingers and toes.
Yes.
Can we show that? This is actually biblical, guys. And I don't know that he's a Christian. I don't have no idea. But can we show?
I'm going to look it up right now. I will pull this up on this app.
Thank you. Yeah, man. This is so hard to see.
Absolutely. Our first verse here, is going to be in 2 Samuel 21:20, and I'll pull that up on something where everybody can see it, okay? So 2 Samuel 21:20. There is another verse in the Bible too, but here's one here for you. And there was yet a battle in Gath, and it's very interesting just how often this stuff seems to be coming out of Gath, where was a man of great stature, that on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant.
Hey, brother, could you pull that up on Blue Letter Bible?
Oh, can you not see it on Blue Letter?
No, we're still on the sword.
Here I go.
Over here with the magnifying glass. I don't know why they make it so small, man. I love the sword because you can click on the Strongs right next to it. It pops right up. It's like the most seamless translate tool. I mean, it really is.
Great search tool too, man. The internet, for some reason, doesn't want you finding some of these verses. I can attest to that personally. But 2 Samuel 21:20 is right here on the screen, if you can see that. And so that's
and there was yet a battle in Gath, where a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. Okay, man. So what Mr. Ballin just said, that was the testimony that had 6 fingers and 6 toes, is right here in the Bible. These giants are known for that. In fact, it's some natives say that, how they always did like that was when people were approaching so they could see the digits. So you can make sure it was 5 and it wasn't one of these things. Now, we talked a little bit about the giants before the flood being called the Nephilim, and then the giants after the flood being called something else. Bronson, could you pull up Og of Bashan for us?
Sure can. I thought I had it. You sent me a screenshot. Let's use your screenshot. Booyah. I'm going to zoom in on that bad boy right there. Og, which is a word that means long-necked. He's giant. Og was a king of Bashan, and he was defeated by the Israelites at Edrei, and his land was apportioned by Moses to the children of Gad and of Reuben and of the half tribe of Manasseh. That is in Numbers 21:33 and Numbers 32:33.
Can we pull those up? Those
Yeah.
references in the Bible up, and let's just learn a little bit about King Og.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. All right. So, just a quick reminder of where we are in the timeline here. I know sometimes people will skip over certain books of the Bible. Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and Numbers are very popular to skip over.
Yes.
But there's some good stuff in Numbers. Quick plug-in for the last conspiracy video we did about the Hollow Earth. We saw a story in Numbers where a hole opened up in the earth and swallowed people, and then the hole closed. And then 2 or 3 chapters later, the Bible tells us that they didn't die. So somewhere or another, they were alive beneath the surface. But quick plug, just for fun. But yeah, and we're still here in the time of Moses, okay? So you see right here in Numbers 32:33. So this is post-Egypt. They're moving around here, and they come up upon this kingdom of Og, right? He's this king of Bashan, and the cities thereof with the coast, and eventually, they end up fighting this guy. So he shows up throughout the Bible, quite a bit, and he's of the giants. Is there anything else you want me to bring up about him?
Yeah, what is he?
Oh yeah, no. This man is he's a Rephaim. He is a descendant of the giants.
He was the last of the Rephaims. There's a verse somewhere.
Yes, exactly right. Yes.
Can we pull that up just to show the people that this wording used does describe him?
Absolutely. Isn't that funny how it just doesn't show up when you type?
It won't say giant. Giant would be in a like in the Septuagint because these gigantus there, I believe.
When we look up in
Og Rephaim.
I guess you are right. Yeah, let's look up Rephaim.
Yeah, it'd be Rephaim if it pulls up. Hopefully it does. Guys, we don't script these shows, so sometimes we just pull up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you gotta understand, we just be pulling it up. But yeah, no, he is most certainly the last of the giants. This is something that you can go find. I mean, I'll get it rolling real quick, but
yeah, let's see if we can find this.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, it just goes to show you just how many times he's used in the Bible. We're gonna look through 22 verses real quick. Og is the king of Bashan. He came out against us, and they battled him. They smote him until the morning. The cities of the king. Amen. Here's the size of his bed.
Yeah, there we go. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the giants. There we go. And it's so funny. We searched Og and giant, and it just never wanted to show up. This is what Bronson was referencing earlier. It's been Blue Letter Bible has been a little frustrating lately. Yeah, can we pull up that giants right there? Let's pull up what that word means.
I'd be happy to. For those of you listening and not watching, we're in Deuteronomy 3, verse 11.
Man, that was frustrating.
I'm telling you, man, I'm not one to toot my own horn or anything, but I have a little bit of a skill that's acquired for being able to find verses.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, I know people are home like, well, he's saying all this stuff and it's not even there. Well, there it is.
Like, dude, you see the verse. It's exactly what I searched for.
Yeah.
Right. Enough about me. Here we go. The word giants is Rapha, okay? Or in the transliteration, Rephaim, essentially. When we go down into this word, remember, guys, that Rapha, that is the word that was originally used in your Hebrew manuscript. One day we will do an entire video on where a Bible comes from, what a manuscript is.
Yeah. Also, remember, I am is plural. It's the same thing as like an S in English. So Raphaim, it's just plural. Nepha or Nephal,
Yeah.
it's just plural. I am is just the plural.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so what does this mean? Let's look at the definition of this word.
Giants, Rephaim, old tribe of giants. This is an old race of giants, extinct. It's odd, excuse me. It's odd that sometimes when you look at these, there's this, what's the word? Condescending certain terms like
Yeah, the
powerless.
ancient Hebrews were known for changing names around and meanings around to convey the way they felt about things or an idea that they wanted to get across. It's a when you really get into definitions, it's a pretty common thing that you see.
Yeah.
You'll see two different root words, and one will have a meaning, and then the other one will be like the meaning they're trying to get across. I'm not a Hebrew expert by any means, guys. I just spent a lot of times in these concordances, and I've come across it a lot. We know we came across it not too long ago. So, all right, so let's look at the root word for this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. All right, so we're going up. This is your root word. And as we come down, we have to heal, to make healthful, of God, healer, physician, of hurts of nations, involving restored favor, to be healed of water.
Ooh, to be healed of water. That's interesting. Now, to be healed of water. Wow. Now, what a definition. We're going to get to that in a minute, guys. Now, Rapha, so that the root of this means to heal. So think about like the archangel Raphael. It means healer of God. Raphael. Raphael. So let's take a look. The water, that's interesting, man. Let's take a look at where these Rephaim come from. And now, granted, guys, we haven't even left the canonical Bible.
Yes.
You don't have to. It's all over it.
It is all over it. All over it. When you're in reference to where these giants come from, are we going to be taking a look at a Job verse about the dead things
Yes.
underwater? All right, I'd be happy to.
There you are.
You got me. It sent me back up to the top. Here we go. It should not be far from here.
That's Job 38.
Excuse me. It has 0 verses. Okay, here we go.
Guys, bear with us for whatever reason. Not even Blue Letter Bible.
If you looked up faith or grace, I'm telling you, get a cajillion verses, man. But there's just certain topics that call me crazy. I know. All right, Job 26, verse 5. Okay, here we go.
This is the exact same thing Brawlson just typed in.
Watching, I promise you, I'm no slouch at this. Dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. All right.
Oh man! All right, so let's pull that verse up, Brawlson.
Sure.
We're not going to let Blue Letter Bible get us down tonight.
Not getting us.
You know what? I was going to recommend that everybody at home follow along with us on Blue Letter Bible. If you're watching on TV and you have your phone, like I definitely would recommend doing that. But man, with this, even when we were recording last night with technical difficulties, it was like we were typing the exact words of the verse and nothing. We'd have to go to the sword, or we'd have to just Google it real quick, and then it just would say exactly what we were searching for.
It's just crazy.
Yes, but definitely feel free to follow along with us. You know, sometimes it's not like this. You know, it's the weirdest thing. All right, sorry, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To give a little context here, we're in the book of Job. This section, the Blue Letter Bible has decided to title "The Greatness of God," and its opening verse in the section is in verse 5. And again, Job 26:5, and it says, "Dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof."
Okay, so let's pull that verse up, but just think about that. The inhabitants thereof. It's telling you that there are inhabitants under the water. Okay, so dead things.
Now,
look at here. Right back. Rephaim.
If you're listening and not watching, we went right to the original word that was used for dead things. And that Hebrew word, if you're starting to catch a pattern here, is Rapha. This This is crazy here, man. The outline of biblical usages for Rafa here is the ghosts of the dead, shades or spirits. And yes, I did say shades, like where you sit in the sunshine to keep yourself from getting hot. Ghost of the dead, shades, and spirits. Awesome,
It's
man.
not like shades, like you sit in under a tree. Shade is just another name for a ghost.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yes.
now let's pull that root up again one more time.
Let's do it.
To heal,
Yep.
and you have right down there of water.
Of water, to heal of water, make health full of God, healer, physician, to be healed of water.
All right, so let's go back to that verse in Job real quick, and we'll just keep breaking this down because understand this. After the flood, these giants come back. And it says here that the dead things, the Rephaim, are formed under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. So it's telling you that somebody under that water were bringing back these ghost shades, spirits of the dead, and they were having, these giants come back on the earth. And this is where they were formed, is under the water. So a couple of things to keep in mind here are that if in the Bible it says that everything that breathes air died in Noah's flood. Now, there was all kinds of genetic manipulations, and we're going to get into some of that here in just a little bit. So I'm not just saying something we're not going to show you. So if there was some kind of a Nephilim hybrid creature that could live underwater, whatever could breathe underwater didn't die. So just keep that in mind. And the inhabitants thereof would indicate that something is down there that is sentient and is doing this.
Yes.
So, Bronson, I tell you what, can we pull up that Tucker Carlson Joe Rogan clip? Let's just let's listen to this, okay? So think about the ability to bring something like that to life, and think what other capabilities could they have? I mean, almost unlimited, right?
Absolutely. A quick verse, just Austin had referenced this, and some people might not be aware of this. In Genesis 7, verse 22, this is post-flood, this is during the flood, this is the narrative of the flood. All in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. These are things that breathe air, things that are dry land.
Yeah, it's qualifiers. So if it could breathe underwater, didn't die, and it didn't have to die. It doesn't, and it lines up biblically completely. And then it talks about it later in Job, that inhabitants thereof under the water are where the dead things, which it's Rephaim. The Rephaim were formed under there, and you see that King Og, when it said giant, is a Rephaim. Okay, it's the same root word. It's the same thing. This is what we're talking about. All right. Do you remember the timestamp?
It was about 2 minutes in or so.
This is really interesting, man. Yeah. All right, guys, just listen to what he's talking about here, and just keep in mind that there are things under the water biblically. This is
know that, then.
All right, here we go.
Got it?
Sure do.
Sound shit?
We have on this topic, it's inherently bad. Okay, so that's the first level. The deeper level is so if they're spiritual beings, which I believe they are, like it's a binary. They're either, you're on team good or team bad. You can assign any name to it you want, but like, what are these things? Are they good or bad? And I think some of them are bad. And if the U.S. government knows that, or elements, the people within the U.S. government know that, then they're serving a bad force. And
well, when you say spiritual, like what makes you draw that conclusion that they're spiritual?
What's the obvious? I mean, spiritual may be the wrong word. Supernatural. They're beyond nature as we understand it. I mean, obviously they are. I mean, just chart their physical behavior. It doesn't, it goes outside of what we understand about physics. No visible means of propulsion, coming at indescribable speed, hitting the ocean, continuing at speeds that are impossible undersea. I mean, in other words, if I take a 9mm round or 7.62 by 39 and shoot you at 50 yards underwater in a swimming pool, and it's even more intense in salt water because it's denser, you could catch the bullet if it even makes it to you, right? So if a craft, any object underwater that's traveling at 500 knots as measured by sonar. Right there, you're challenging our understanding of physics. Like, what is that? How can that be? So yeah,
They've tracked that. They've tracked things going 500 knots under the sea.
yeah, really, yeah, much faster than any object can actually go undersea. Yo, for sure. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on underwater, and a lot. And there's video of these things coming out of the sky into the water and also emerging from the water.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
it's so blurry though.
I don't think
Like
it's
the
that
transmedium video.
Yeah, I don't think some of it's that blurry. I think some of it's crystal clear.
We just don't have access to it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Just we haven't seen it. So
correct.
they have some stuff.
For sure. So, but there's just a lot going on underwater, and it's measured. And so, whatever. I mean, these are all, again, this is like the most obvious observable level of it. But then you just ask yourself, like, what is this actually? And, if there's been extensive knowledge of this for decades, like maybe 80 years at least, if not going back to the 30s, 90 years, to what end? So there are two possible explanations, obvious explanations. The first is the one you often hear, which is this is so heavy that if the public were to know about it, it would be just disruptive. It'd be too
I guess
scary.
there,
Like, we don't
Rawson.
want to scare people for no
Sure,
good
yeah.
reason. There's nothing we can do about it.
Dude, he said if I shoot a bullet underwater, especially saltwater if it's denser, you could catch that thing.
Yeah.
These things, and most people have seen the videos. If you haven't, they're Googleable. They're all over the place. They made national news for quite some time. These things, when they hit the water, they ain't stopping. I mean, a bullet's
No.
pretty fast. I think we can all agree bullets are pretty fast. I wouldn't try to catch one, but
Well,
man,
just let's put it like this: if something can create a Rephaim giant like King Og, if that's where they're formed, that's what the Bible says. Now, then what would be a 0-point energy to them or capabilities like this? If you can breathe life back into a monster, I'm not saying it's like a creation like God. What I'm saying is just a euphemism. If you can bring something like that and form that and have that alive, that's some pretty serious technology, spiritual, and it is spiritual. Tucker Carlson is right. I know Joe Rogan questioned a little bit, but it is. There's all kinds of stories about UFOs and coming in, and the only thing that ever saved people was calling on the name of Jesus, and that's it. And there's tons of those stories. I'm not telling you some goofy Christian stuff. You can go look this up for yourself. What was that guy's name that he was a researcher and like exorcist? I'm trying to think of what his name was, but he had all kinds of accounts of this. I think Jim Wilhelmsen had accounts like this as well. I can't remember the other guy's name, but this is real. This is biblical. Under the water, we have something going on, and I'm not going to say that I know exactly what it is because I don't, but it's very clear through physical evidence, biblical evidence that something is going on here.
right
Now, Bronson, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and go to Enoch, and we don't have to show the screen share yet, but we'll go ahead and get there. Now, there's a lot of times we see in comments and people talking, Richard Dawkins, you see these kind of people that always say, and it bothered me when I was younger too. You read in the Old Testament and you see things like kill the women, kill the children, kill the animals, kill it all, right? And Bronson, did that ever bother you?
Yeah, man. If you're unfamiliar with what Austin's talking about, that same time period we were just speaking about not too long ago, and in the book of Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua especially, there is war, nonstop war post-Exodus, and there are places where God commands the inhabitants of Israel during battle to leave no survivors, and that includes the animals, and that includes the women and the children, and in some cases they're told to even burn the food. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and don't take anything. You know what I mean? They're just
nothing.
it's
There's
the files.
Hey, who's the guy that brings an item back and doesn't he he gets in trouble? You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll go there, but
Sure. Yeah.
we'll go there. Yeah. No, seriously, he's in big trouble. I think he's from the tribe of Judah. I can't remember his name exactly, but him and his whole family got in trouble. Put it that way. Done. Old Testament style done. Anyway, so the common misconception is that God is this genocidal maniac and all this type of stuff, and it's honestly it's kind of sad because they have this idea of God, and honestly, it was out of mercy. And it may sound funny that I'm saying this right now, but you got to understand that this is these Rephaim. These are the tribes of the Rephaim. They descended from the Nephilim, is what it says in the Bible, doesn't it? Where it's talking about, they're given that report or whatever. So I guess it's questionable, but it says dead things are formed under the water. Okay. And I would venture to say that these souls, and it talks about the shades and everything. I would venture to say that those are probably the shades, the souls of the Nephilim that was inhabiting these giant bodies. It's insane, but it's all there and it's all biblical. And you just heard Tucker Carlson talking about the tech that they see coming out of the ocean, and we don't know anything about the ocean, to be honest with you. Once you get to a certain depth, it's the pressure down there is just, and the temperatures and everything, it's just bad news. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up Enoch so we can go ahead and get this point across.
Yes. Guys, if you're unfamiliar with the book of Enoch and what we're about to discuss, I would highly suggest opening your Bible, go to a nice Bible searcher, and just look up the word giant. You're going to get lots of verses to backs up everything that Austin just said. I am currently looking at a screen, and you won't be able to see it very well because it's dark and black and whatnot. But I've got verses on verses on verses here of giants that these guys fought. And that's what the KJV Bible says. You see it through Joshua, Deuteronomy, Genesis, Numbers, and on and on. This is not like something that is done in a corner, to quote Paul. This is not hidden from you at all. These are just happen to be in the books that people just sort of look over. We see them up in 2 Samuel. I mean, I think the most popular one is David and Goliath, of course, but there's a lot more than that. And we're not just told these are giants. We're also told what tribes they come from. We have the Anakims. We have people that descended from Enrogel. We've got giants all over the place.
Og's name means the long neck, and I believe it was the Amalekites. Is that correct?
Yes.
The Amalekites, that means long neck. So there's several descriptors, and this is 101, and we'll probably do all of the different Nephilim tribes at some point and break them all down. But let's just cover the basics real quick. Let's go to Enoch 6.
Let's do it, man.
All right. So they say that God is a genocidal God and kill the women, kill the children. And I always felt bad about that until I read the book of Enoch and really understood the gravity of what was going on here. Now, just go ahead and read if you would, sir.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Guys, this is here to give you tools in your belt, dude, because these people, and when I say these people, it's just people that are not Christian, are going to come at you with this. If you're not familiar with these stories and you don't know what they're talking about, isn't a good enough argument for this. It's time that we word up, gird up, and get yourself together here and understand that people out here are going to argue with you about this, and we've got to get in the word. So
let me say this too: even if you're not a Christian, look, if you're going to criticize the story, at least know the story.
Absolutely.
And I could see from outside, view looking in, where it's like, God, the Old Testament is just, but really this explains it. And if you don't accept it, that's fine. But at least know the story that you're criticizing, because the reason they did this was for, in my opinion, to really save the entire world.
Yeah, man.
So let's check this out real quick and just like get an idea of what was going on back then, and who these sons of God are, and what was going on the earth when the Nephilim walked it. So please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so we're reading from the book of 1st Enoch. We're in chapter 6 and verse 1. Here we go. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied in those days, were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swore they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders. That's on the screen for you to read. Verse 8. These are their chiefs of tens. I hate to be silly. I'm not trying to be funny. It's just you try reading that.
No, Brawson, please skip it, guys. Go ahead and read them for yourself. Leave it up on the screen for a second, but don't do it to yourself, Brawson.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
We'll be here all day, sir.
Next chapter, chapter 7. Is there anything you wanted to cover? What we just read in chapter 6, was that too fast, or do you think?
Well, these sons of God, which are these Watcher class angels, 200 of them descended on Mount Hermon. That is. Go back to the chapter. Let's see.
Yeah.
It's just telling you a more enhanced version of this is Enoch chapter 6, Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Is where we get the heroes of old, men of renown in the Bible. This is the first verse we showed tonight. Now, this right here is just giving you an extended version of what happened here and more details about where they descended from and that they bound themselves by oath. So these guys knew that this, was a great sin. So they didn't go into it blindly. They understood what they were doing. Okay, so as we go along here, let's go ahead and go to the next chapter.
Let's do it. This is chapter 7.
Yeah.
Again, we are in the book of First Enoch. And here we go. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells.
All right, stop right there.
Sure.
Now, an L is a unit of measurement that we don't know exactly what it is. And honestly, if somebody tells you they know what that is, I think they're full of it. The best recollection that people give is like 300 to 400 feet, something like that. I don't think anybody really knows, just to be honest. But it's a unit of measurement. These guys were huge. If you look at a movie like Clash of the Titans or Wrath of the Titans, and you see like Prometheus, these big Titans, the Titans to the Greeks were just like the first generation of the Nephilim. Okay. Like if you watch that movie, you'll get a good picture of what we're talking about here. These guys were big. All right, please go ahead.
Sure. And they became pregnant, and they bare giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began.
Here we go, guys. Think Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Huge cannibalistic giants. And the Native Americans in the U.S. have stories about these being cannibals, and they were known to be cannibals.
Strong, fast, and intelligent.
But just think about that. They consumed everything. They were eating, killing machines. Okay. Yeah. And I would venture to say probably breeding machines at the time. There was probably just filling the earth with these nasty things. And we're about to see that it's not just angels and women, and it's not just giants and women. It's everything in nature.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood.
Whoa, hold on now.
What's
they
up?
They sin against the fish.
Oh,
they
not
sin against
water.
the reptiles.
Yeah.
So
Mothman and the Chupacabra and Bigfoot. I mean, that's where I go with it personally.
We've talked about doing a cryptid episode, and we could do a whole cryptid episode on just the Bible, guys, and you'll be surprised what all is in there when you really start looking at it.
Right.
Now, if you look at a book like the Book of the Giants, the fragments we have of it, you can see genetic splicing there. You can see genetic splicing in our modern day. You have the Neuralink, Elon Musk. That's transhumanism, merging with machines. You can see this, and it's going on today. You had, I think it was 96, the sheep was cloned.
Yeah.
I mean, we have CRISPR-9 technology. We have these genetic, capabilities today, and back then they did too. And you hear about minotaurs and centaurs and all of these hybrid creatures. Let's talk about it this way. In Genesis, in the creation account, we talked about this. It says a kind after a kind after a kind. God created us to be in our own lane, so to speak. Humans after humans, horses after horses, dogs after dogs. We all stay in our own lane. Okay? Now, in Hebrew, the soul is the nephesh. We all have a prescribed nephesh, and I believe the animals do, and we all have our lane to stay in, and we have our part in creation. Now, there was no God prescribed nephesh for an angel and a woman. There just wasn't. And we'll read later in Enoch, and can show some examples. So with that combination, it doesn't work. There's no place for that soul to go in the afterlife. So they end up becoming demons and ghosts and shades, like the definition of Rafa there. They become these things after they die. It just is incredible, man. And we're going to get to that later in Enoch. But I wanted to go back to the water and show that these, after talking about the genetic manipulation, they sin against the fish and the reptiles. Right. So I think that whatever is under there that are forming the dead things, which is Rephaim under the water, I think this might be the origin of that, or at least the ancestor of what's going on now and what formed those dead things. I think that we're seeing this right here.
I agree 100%. And this is, again, guys, let's say you're a little bit of a veteran in the subject. Don't worry. Stay tuned for part 2 and 3. We're going to take this to a whole nother level. I promise you that. You ready for chapter 8?
Yeah, keep going, sir.
Yeah, sure. They drank the blood. And in verse 6, the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Heading into chapter 8 here. We're about to see what these guys get known for. These guys they're worshipped, man. I mean, it's your ancient cultures and stuff. This is who they're worshiping. This is your Zeus. This is your Poseidon. This is your. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Shemjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. This guy taught the resolving of enchantments. This guy, that one teaches astrology. Another one teaches the constellations. This one teaches the knowledge of the clouds, the signs of the sun and the signs of the earth, the courses of the moon. And as men perish, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven.
Yep. So when God is telling, kill the women, kill the children, kill the animals, destroy it all, it comes across as like this genocidal maniac thing. But the thing is they have to wipe these things off the earth, or we would have been overrun. In fact, the Israelites wouldn't have been able to do it without God's help. I don't know how many times it says God fought for Israel. I think there's 3 separate times.
I'll pull that.
Yeah, please. But they were fighting against these things that were eating us, guys. When you talk about, oh, God sent the flood and all this, like, we were pretty much wiped out anyways. And in Genesis, it talks about, the humans sinned against the birds and the beasts and all that. A lot of people try and like put the flood on the giants. God didn't even flood the earth for the giants. It was us carrying on. I mean, there were still giants, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them were wiped out in a war about 500 years before the flood. And we'll go into that in the next episode. Let's keep it light here. But so these things were just wiping out the earth. They were eating us. They were cannibalistic. Good night, son. My boy's over here. But they were eating us. And imagine Attack on Titan. If you're younger, you like anime, just cannibalistic giants. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple of verses here where Austin was referring to, where just happened to be in Joshua, First Samuel, and Second Chronicles. Um, this is in Joshua 10, verse 42. And all these kings and their land did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel. And in Joshua 23, verse 3, and ye have seen all that the Lord your God hath done unto all these nations because of you. For the Lord your God is he that hath fought for you. 1 Samuel 12:9. And when they forgat the Lord their God, he sold them in the land of Sisera, captain of the host of Hazor, and into the land of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab, and they fought against him. Um, yeah, so here we go. Second Chronicles 20:29. And the fear of God was on all the kingdoms of those countries when they had heard that the Lord fought against the enemies of Israel. These guys were shaking in their boots. They were worried. Try to imagine, when Jesus starts pointing out these demons in the church, and they freak out and they say, "Oh no, God, what are you doing here? You're here before the time. Torment us not." I'll pull up a verse here as well where it says that God is actually going to war against the gods of Egypt here. It just doesn't stop, man.
Yeah. Well, the point is that if he didn't intervene, we wouldn't be here. The world would be destroyed. They would have eaten it out. These things were destructive and warlike, and I mean, filthy creatures. That's just the humanoid ones. Imagine ascending against the birds and the fish and the reptiles. Now, reptiles. Think about what you have there. Could that be some of these T-Rex things that you see? You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
There's
yes.
there's infinite possibilities when you're mixing this DNA of these angelic beings with things that's here. It creates chaos. There's animals that aren't supposed to be here. And just imagine like a big Komodo dragon or an anaconda mixed with angel DNA. I mean, it made giant human beings. Imagine what it would do to that and how much it would consume. So God's not this genocidal maniac. He had to get this off the earth once and for all, because whatever was under the water, forming these things, was completely undoing what happened with the flood. I mean, the flood was not, it was to preserve mankind. It says in Genesis that that there was nobody else. Nobody else was uncorrupted except for Noah and his family. That was it. Everybody else had sinned against birds and beasts and had done something to themselves. There's something that was going on genetically that were making these people basically not human. A lot of people that look into transhumanism fear that today going to happen with Neuralink and all the other things that's going on. And you can go and look up like what is it, 2045, the humanist agenda or whatever.
Yeah, the numbers changed 100 times. 2030.
Ferrari said it. Mr. WEF himself, that by another 100 years, humans will be basically extinct.
Yeah.
The only ones left will be the ones that take the next leap and merge with technology and gene splicing. I mean, and I'm not making any of this up. You can go look this up for yourself. I mean, this is real. This is what's going on now in the elite circles. So it's so important that we fight back, really, or we won't, have anything to fight for. We're going back to, it says, as it was in the days of Noah, shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. And what was happening in the days of Noah?
Verse.
It said, all right, let's go to Genesis, man. Let's show this, what's going on here. This all ties together. It's all one story. It's not just random things. This is the seed war. This is chess pieces back and forth. And honestly, we talked about this a little bit last night before we got cut off. If you are the serpent, right? We talked about the seed war. Let's pull up that verse just for people that didn't watch our Genesis. It was Genesis 3. We have part 1 and part 2. Please go watch it. It covers this in depth about the seed war going on, and the Nephilim and the Watcher angels coming down is just an extension of the seed war that we've been talking about. So let's look at here the curses to the serpent, please, if you don't mind. And
Yes.
just quickly, we'll go through this real quick for the people that have watched it, and the people that haven't, you'll see what we're talking about here.
Yes. So Eve says unto God that the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. So we're in Genesis chapter 3, verse 14. And God said unto the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
Oh, okay. So this is God telling us about the seed war. He's declaring war basically and giving a prophecy at the same time. Okay, so let's go to this verse. I'll put enmity between thee and the woman. Okay, so if you're the serpent and the seed of the woman is going to crush your head, Bronson, what's the first thing you're going to try and do?
I'm crushing her head, man.
Right. And how do you crush the head of the seed? You infiltrate it.
Right.
Yeah. So if there is no seed of the woman, this prophecy cannot come true. So if you bombard the earth with these hybrid beings that have no God prescribed nefesh, there is no seed of the woman that's going to crush the serpent's head. This chess moves, okay? God says this, watch our angels come down, start spreading their seed, the serpent seed,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
defiling the earth. And they were eating and drinking the blood of humans. They were eating us because we couldn't sustain them with our food. They were eating everything and consuming everything. We saw that in Enoch. I mean, you can see in the time of Jacob, not Jacob, my apologies, in Caleb's time, that they had these big grapes. I mean, they were genetically, engineering food back then. They had GMO. I mean, this is real.
Multiple soldiers, men of valor, valiant men of war, took multiple soldiers to carry a bundle of grapes. Just throw that out there. That's
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. They had GMO back then. They were sinning against the fruit, which I believe that's what we're doing when we use these GMO products. Everything is after its kind. Everything. God created it to be what it is. You're not supposed to play with creation. That's a side note, but this is what's going on. They were eating us out of house and home. So the idea that God is some genocidal maniac because he's fighting with the Israelites to take these beings that are just destroying everything and would destroy even more if it wasn't for the hand of God moving. The idea that he's a genocidal maniac is not true. It's merciful. It saved the world. It saved the world from these things. I mean, you saw the story of the Kandahar giant. This is special forces with modern weaponry. Okay? It takes a lot to take these things down, even with modern weaponry.
Yes, it sure does. A point I forgot to bring out earlier. This is a slight tangent, so forgive me because I'm a few minutes behind. I was supposed to say this earlier. The fact that that thing threw a spear is just bananas to me because one of the many weapons you see assigned to the giants in the time of David's time is these spears that are the size of weaver's beams.
Yes.
I know I've got a bit of an accent, forgive my Union Countyisms, but imagine the big rod that you use on a wove to weave things together, a loom.
Yeah, man. Hey, like nobody knows what that is. It's just a big spear, bro.
It's humongous, bro. It's massive.
It's big. It's really big.
I just thought
I know exactly what you're talking about. As I've heard it compared to that before, and they're just massive. Like you wouldn't be able to hold it up, basically.
No. No.
And these things, even in Native American cultures, and you can go look at this up and verify too. They have stories of where these giants, they were big, strong, quick, and agile. They weren't just like bumbling and stumbling giants. That's not what this is. They were like superhuman, okay? And you saw it when he threw the spear. But these Native Americans have stories where they would just run up, grab a buffalo in one arm, rip a leg off, and just start eating it raw and carrying that buffalo with them. These are stories from the Native Americans. So, and you can go look the story up. It's a pretty well-known one, actually. But no, so God's not this genocidal maniac, guys. That's not what the story is. And you can go look at all these tribes that were fighting in Canaan and trace it back.
That's it. That's it. You need to know this, guys, and I needed to know it too because it was hard pressed to argue and defend your religion. Most of the time when I bring this up to people, I call me provocative if you like, but I love to talk to Christians and see where they are on this thing. And
One other thing, Bronson, let me just say this.
Sure.
God also is accused of being a xenophobic racist. Okay, this is the same reason he tells the Israelites not to mate with these tribes. It's a seed war. Okay, it's a seed war at the beginning. Until Jesus Christ, it's a seed war. Okay, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And this whole in Genesis and Enoch and all this is telling you about this. This is the beginning of the world. It's thousands of years, but it's giving you a brief synopsis, and Enoch gives you a little bit more of what's going on. But it's a seed war, and that's why they weren't allowed to mate with these other tribes. It wasn't about racism. And you can go and look in the New Testament and see where he had the vision and the cloth was lifted and had all the unclean food, and everybody always tries to make it like, oh, see, every food is clean. You can eat whatever you want. But it doesn't say that. Would you pull that up, Bronson? When you go to the next verse, it tells you that pertains to people, that you're not supposed not supposed to discriminate against Gentiles, because he's talking to a Jew that's never ate anything unclean. So he's not a racist God. Everything has its purpose, and when you understand that it's a seed war, and you take everything into consideration, and Enoch also, you see, no, it was an act of mercy, and this is he couldn't have them mixing with him. He could not have them mixing with him. For a delivery system for Messiah, he couldn't have it Nephilim blood. Okay, what does God look like coming into a fleshly body that doesn't have a God prescribed flesh? It doesn't have, you know what I mean? Is part Nephilim. It makes no sense. It's a defiled body. God would never. Ever.
Yeah. A serial number.
It's sacrilegious to even think about, to be honest with you. I feel dirty.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He had to be 100% God and 100% man.
Right.
And for the prophecy of him crushing the serpent's head, the seed of the woman, he's the seed of the woman. But if you look, it says where he will crush your head. It's the seed of the woman, but it's going to be a he that crushes the serpent's head. So for him to be able to come in and fulfill that prophecy of crushing his head, he had to get here, okay, and needed a bloodline that was human, all the way human, not a drop of Nephilim blood. That's what you needed.
Absolutely, you did a great job.
That's just to bring it all together, guys. It's a seed war, and I encourage you to go back and watch the seed war videos. They were good, but we go in depth on this. Do you have anything that you want to add, Bronson?
No, I've got Acts 10 pulled up here, guys. I mean, we could do an entire episode on Acts 10, but it's here. That's the vision that Austin was referring to. I'd highly recommend reading it and then reading it again and then read the next chapter and understand that the context there is explained, as a lot of prophecies and a lot of dreams are. They explain themselves in the Bible, and it tells you what it's about. And I could rant on that for a minute, but no, man, I'm with you 100%. I think you did a fantastic job on this, guys.
You did awesome, bro. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is the argument here, man. If you get into an argument with anybody who knows anything about their Bible, they are going to pull this up on you. And I'm begging you, please understand your Bible, because you are going to lose this argument. And my pastor said it's not good enough for these people. They don't care about what your pastor said.
They don't care. Listen, a lot of these people don't care what the Bible says.
You need to have the word of God with you, because they are thirsty for it. They don't care what a man on a stage says. Get the knowledge, get the bread, read the Bible, and spread that word, man. We have to spend our time here. Nuh-uhs isn't good enough anymore, bro. My pastor said isn't good enough anymore, man. So open up your Bible and understand what it truly, truly says, and get to know your God, because it should bother you inside when someone calls your God a genocidal, war-hungry maniac that's a racist, and you have nothing to do with it. You have nothing to defend yourself against that, and you can't even defend your own God, bro. That's like somebody coming at Austin and defending Austin and or making fun of Austin, and I just sit there with, I don't know what to say about that. That's not right. That's your people. That's your family. This is your God and your creator, and he's given you a love letter. He's given you a book. He's given you notes right here for you to be able to understand him and to protect this and to defend his word and his name, and it is your right. It is your right and obligation as a Christian to understand this and to have the knowledge and wisdom and understanding on what this Bible says. If you reject the knowledge, God rejects you and he rejects your children. We've read that in Hosea just the other day. So forgive me for getting a little passionate about it, but this bothers me and it should bother you too. And faith isn't good enough in this one, guys. I've heard people say, well, you just have to have faith. You just have to have faith. Look, if this
Let
God,
me ask you something. Hold on a second.
can I go for
Have
just one more
faith,
second?
faith in what? You don't have to have faith to read. Just read the book. It's already there.
Yeah, if you'll give me just one more second on this, this is having faith in God. And what God? Who is your God? Who is this God that you're worshiping? If any old moment in time he can turn around and say, slay the house of Austin and Bronson, is that the God you want to worship? Is that the character traits of the God you worship, who just all of a sudden he can just say, you know what? Just invade this country and kill everybody for no reason. Is that the loving and worshiping God that you guys always talk about in your church? It's full of grace and love and mercy, and we're all just his children? Or is there more to the Bible? Is there more to the story? Is there more information? It's not something that God is missing. It's not a personality trait or love that God is missing. It's information that his people are missing out on. And so if you'll just take the time to open up your book and get to know your God and understand that grace is all over the book. Love your neighbors in Deuteronomy, okay? Love your God with all your heart and all your might and all your strength is in Deuteronomy. The story doesn't change. I am God and I change not. That's what the Bible says. And if we can put this into full context, you can better defend yourself when people come at you, and you don't have to get upset. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to get emotional. And you can actually truly defend yourself with proper tools and proper information using the Word of God and the Word of God only. So that's my rant for the night, man. Sorry I went on my little high horse for a second there, but it's something that, dude,
Yeah, you'll come across it, man. And most of the people that are doing it they don't really care what the real story is, but they don't know the real story.
no.
So they honestly, that's what it comes down to is they just want to, they hate God and they heard from somebody that hates God and they really don't know what they're talking about. When you break it down, it's a story of mercy. Not mercy for the Nephilim, not mercy for the Rephaim, not mercy for the other side. We have none of that.
Right.
But there's, I got my little Sammy here, but yeah, no, he's not a genocidal maniac. He's not a racist. He's a loving God that loves all of us. And you can go to Acts 10 and you can read that. You can see what's going on there. He died for us. He loves us. God is the same yesterday, today, and always. And these Nephilim, they once walked the earth, and God showed his power, sent the flood, wiped them out, man. And it's for the better of all of us. And we see it in the comments. So, oh, your God flooded the world, and then he got rid of Sodom and Gomorrah, the great cities of light. It's not cities of light. This is where these were cities of darkness, great darkness. And it wasn't just sodomy going on here. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. I personally believe, these were cities filled with Rephaim, cities filled with darkness and these magic and these practices of the Watchers that we read about. I think next time we talk about the Nephilim, we'll go a little bit into Jubilees and talk a little bit about these teachings of the Watchers. There's a good passage in there we can go and talk about. But guys, these Nephilim were real. Even in Kandahar in 2006, you see this. We've laid out a pretty good biblical roadmap to show that, hey, they are before the flood and after the flood, just like it says in Genesis. And go ahead and close us out here, Bronson.
Sounds good, man. We appreciate everybody taking the time to hang out with us and watch these videos with us. We see your comments. We see your messages, and I can promise you it greatly affects us. Yeah. And makes us very, very happy, man. This has been a long time coming. Austin and I, it's not unusual, and it was not unusual for many, many years to spend 8 hours, sometimes 12 hours, multiple times a day in a row, learning about these things and discovering new things. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time, but you can do this if you just take the time with God. Take a few hours, man, even if it's just 1 hour a week, and it'll slowly grow. Your connection with God grows. The book of James says that if you draw nigh unto God, he will draw nigh unto you. And there's something about playing tag there. If you open up that Bible and learn a little bit, God teaches a little bit. And you slowly become addicted to this relationship with your Creator. And over time, you find yourself craving to get into the Word and getting into the Bible. And it becomes something fun and enjoyable, to the point where you might find yourself on an 8-hour phone call with your brother just talking all day long about the Bible. We eventually got to a point where it was like, man, we need to start recording this stuff. And we weren't originally going to put this stuff out, man. We just had this for us, and we got it out there, and people started watching, and we said, you know what? Let's just keep this thing going. So for those of you who are watching, we really, really appreciate that. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If there's ever any content you want us to cover, feel free to message us. Austin and I do not run from anything. We are big fans of the Bible, and we'll address any type of topic that you want us to, as long as it's fit and appropriate for a viewing audience. So thank you again. That's all I have to say, Austin.
Like, share, subscribe, everybody. And like you said, if you want us to talk about anything, leave it in the comments. If you want us to address something that we didn't get to tonight in the next Nephilim video, I'm sure we'll do plenty of them. We have Genesis 5 coming out on Sunday. We have and then Genesis 6 coming out the week after that on Sunday. Every week we're doing it, dropping it on Sundays. We'll record it on the Sabbath at nighttime, and we'll get it to you. But I'm sure we'll be covering the Nephilim a lot, that Genesis 6 one again. And so if you guys want us to cover anything in that, we'll be happy to, like multiple topics, whatever you want to. If you have some verses that we left out, or you have extra biblical text, or whatever, man, you want us to cover some stuff from Samaria, we'll bring it up, and we'll show how it relates to the Bible, and we can tie it in. All these stories all come from the same source. I don't know if you've realized that. They really do. They all come from the same source. It's just the viewpoint that's different. Okay. Right. So feel free to ask us anything, like and subscribe and all that, guys, and share us out. And you guys have a good night. God bless. And read your Bibles, guys. Get into it. It's a lot of cool stuff.
Amen. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you next time on Ancient Echoes.